Emily Lancaster, the estranged daughter of a powerful family, returns to her hometown after learning that her mother is dying and that her cousin Malcolm is plotting to take over the Lancaster fortune and estate. Emily had vanished years ago to escape the manipulative grip of her privileged lineage, but now she's forced to confront the legacy she tried to leave behind. With the help of Ryan, a protective and street-smart man she met by chance at the train station, and the sharp-witted family advisor, Yvonne, Emily races against time to uncover her late father's secret will before the board meeting that will decide the future of the Lancaster Empire. As secrets unfold, Emily learns of a key hidden beneath a chessboard, a flash drive containing her father's last message, and a legacy designed specifically for her to reclaim, if she can survive Malcolm's sabotage and manipulation. In a final confrontation at the estate, Emily exposes Malcolm, presents her father's will, and wins over the board, officially becoming the heir of the Lancaster estate. But more than wealth, Emily regains something far greater: her mother's pride, her own self-worth, and the courage to stop running from who she was meant to be. This is a story you will want to sit back and enjoy. Before we start, I would like you to subscribe, like, and comment on this video from where you are watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Let us begin. Malibu's shoreline shimmered under the first rays of morning light, waves kissing the sand like whispered secrets. Nestled against the cliffs stood azure sky, a restaurant so exclusive its reservations list read like a Forbes article. It was where movie stars dined in sunglasses, where CEOs negotiated billion-dollar deals over sea base, and where the staff wore smiles sharper than the knives they polished. Among them, walking softly with a tray of cappuccinos and trembling hands, was Emily. To the world, she was just another timid server. Her uniform, crisp but plain, hung on her slender frame, and her sneakers had scuffs no one rich enough to eat there would notice. But behind her soft brown eyes and quiet nods lay a truth no one in the dining room could guess. Emily Lancaster, billionaire heiress, daughter of the late Jonathan Lancaster, tech tycoon and founder of Lancaster Industries. 3 months ago, her life had been a curated dream. Private jets, red carpets, and a fiancé with a jawline carved by angels and a heart filled with ambition. Then the headlines came. The betrayal. The deal her fiancé had secretly made behind her back, leveraging their relationship to win over investors. And just like that, the engagement ring worth $500,000 was dropped into a wine glass at a charity gala. Emily had smiled for the cameras while dying inside. Now she was here, no last name, no entourage, just her and the mission her broken heart had whispered late one night. Find love, real love, the kind that doesn't ask what your father built or what you own. The restaurant bustled with energy as breakfast began. Plates clinked, orders flew, and Emily moved through it all like a shadow, unnoticed by most. Her co-workers, mostly college students and aspiring actors, barely spoke to her beyond the basics. Some thought she was odd, others thought she was hiding something. They were right. At 9:17 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. Emily didn't look up at first. She was too busy wiping down a table where someone had spilled beetroot juice and blamed her for it. But she heard the new voice, a quiet thanks to the host, then the sound of a chair sliding at the counter. She glanced over and paused. The man who had walked in didn't belong, not in the traditional sense. He wore rolled-up sleeves and boots, not designer loafers. His hair was tousled, his jaw scruffed, and his eyes, dark and deep, moved slowly, absorbing everything. He pulled out a worn leather sketchbook and started drawing. Emily's hands tightened on the cleaning cloth. "Go take his coffee," said Megan, the sharp-tongued senior waitress. "Maybe he'll tip more than quarters." Emily nodded and approached the counter. "Good morning," she said, pouring from the fresh pot. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The man looked up and smiled. Not the kind of smile you give when you want something. It was gentle, steady. "What's your name?" he asked. Emily blinked. No one had asked that all morning. "Emily," she replied. "Nice to meet you, Emily," he said. "I'm Ryan." Before she could say another word, a voice behind her snapped, "Don't bother with her, man. She's just a broke little nobody playing waitress." Emily froze. The comment came from Jerry, one of the longtime servers with a chip on his shoulder, and a mouth like sandpaper. Her cheeks flushed as she turned to apologize, but Ryan's voice cut through the air before she could speak. "I'd rather talk to someone real than waste my time with anyone fake." The restaurant stilled. Jerry scoffed and walked off. Emily stood there, heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. She returned to the back counter, hands shaking harder than before. Not from embarrassment, but from something far more dangerous. Hope. She stole glances at Ryan over the next hour. He stayed, sketching, sipping coffee, and when she returned to refill his cup, she saw what he had drawn. It was her, pouring coffee, her apron perfectly outlined, ponytail slightly frizzy, a quiet strength in her eyes that no one else ever seemed to notice. "You drew me," she whispered, stunned. He shrugged, not looking up. "You look like you belong in the scene." A million questions screamed in her mind. Who was this man? Why did he see her? Later, after he left, she found a napkin folded beside his empty cup. On it, a drawing of a steaming mug and 3 words, "See you soon." Urged that night, Emily sat on her apartment floor, the napkin in her lap, her heart a mess of memories and warnings. She thought of her father's words, "You'll know who's real when you have nothing left to give." She didn't know if Ryan was real, but she was going to find out. The next morning, Emily returned to the restaurant with a tighter ponytail and a lie rehearsed in her throat in case anyone asked why she looked so distracted. Ryan was already there. Same stool, same sketchbook. He smiled when he saw her, but before she could approach, the front doors burst open, and a man in a tailored suit stormed in, flanked by security. Her blood ran cold. It was her fiancé, the one who betrayed her, the one who wasn't supposed to. Know where she was, and he was looking straight at her. The world slowed. Emily's fingers clenched the edge of her tray as her ex-fiancé, Nathan Hale, heir to Hale Global, and the man who shattered her trust, marched through the restaurant with ice in his veins and fury in his eyes. He hadn't aged a day in the 3 months since she'd vanished from his penthouse and his life. Still handsome, still polished, still dangerous. But this wasn't the charming mask he wore in public. This was the man behind closed doors, the one who had weaponized love for leverage, and now he'd found her. "Emily," he said, loud enough for heads to turn. "You're coming with me." She didn't move. Her body screamed at her to run. Her mind scrambled for a lie, an exit, anything. Ryan stood up. He didn't say a word at first, just placed a hand on the counter between Nathan and Emily. Not threatening, not aggressive, just there. "Is there a problem?" Ryan asked, his voice calm, grounded, like stone warmed by the sun. Nathan gave him a slow once-over, as if sizing up a stray dog. "This doesn't concern you. It does if you're harassing a waitress in public." "I'm not harassing anyone," Nathan said through clenched teeth. "This is my fiancé." "Ex-fiancé," Emily said, the word tumbling from her. Lips like broken glass, Nathan flinched. "You vanished without a word. I had private investigators looking for you for weeks. And this is where you've been, playing peasant?" The staff stared. Whispers rippled like wind over water. Emily's chest tightened. Her cover was unraveling, thread by thread. "I'm not going anywhere with you," she said, her voice low but firm. Nathan's jaw ticked. "We need to talk. In private." She said no, Ryan said again, stepping slightly in front of her now. Nathan turned, nostrils flaring. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who doesn't treat people like property," Ryan answered. A muscle twitched in Nathan's cheek. You don't know who she is. You think you're protecting some broke waitress? She's worth over $200 million. Her father... I said no, Emily interrupted, louder this time. I'm not that girl anymore. Nathan's face darkened. Then I hope you're ready for what comes next. With that, he spun on his heel and left, his security detail trailing him like sharks. Emily's knees nearly gave out. Ryan caught, her arm steadying her. You okay? She nodded, lied. Yeah, thanks. Ryan searched her face. He didn't push, just gave a quiet nod. The rest of her shift passed in a haze. Her co-workers avoided eye contact. Megan kept glancing at her, like she'd grown a second head. Jerry muttered something about rich girls playing poor, but she didn't have the energy to respond. At the end of her shift, she found Ryan waiting outside beneath a flickering street lamp, leaning against his truck. Want a ride home? He asked. Emily hesitated. She shouldn't. She didn't know him, not really, but she wanted to. Yeah, she whispered. Thanks. They drove in silence for a few minutes, the windows down, the ocean just a faint whisper beyond the cliffs. Finally, Ryan spoke. So, Nathan Hale? Emily winced. You heard of him? Anyone who's ever read a business magazine has, she sighed. I wasn't hiding from the press, I was hiding from him. Ryan's hands tightened on the wheel. I don't need saving, she added quickly. I just needed to breathe. He didn't answer for a long time. Then, we all need to breathe. He dropped her off a block from her apartment, no questions asked. Just a quiet, good night, Emily, before he drove off. She stood there, heart beating wildly as the truck disappeared around the corner. She felt something shift, a door cracking open, maybe to something real. But as she turned toward her building, her stomach dropped, because taped to her front door was a small white envelope with gold trim. She knew that seal. It was the Lancaster family crest. No one, not even Nathan, should have known where she lived. Hands trembling, she tore the envelope open. Inside was a single card. Your father's will is being contested. Your inheritance is under threat. Come home, or lose everything. The card weighed 1,000 pounds in her hands. Emily stood frozen on her doorstep, the air thick with fog and warning. The Lancaster family crest shimmered faintly in the moonlight like a curse that refused to die. Come home, or lose everything. Her pulse thrummed in her ears. It wasn't just a threat. It was a command, a reminder that no matter how far she ran, the Lancaster name had claws. And someone wanted to drag her back into the pit. Inside her apartment, she double-locked the door and slid the deadbolt home. Her fingers shook as she reread the message. The handwriting was delicate, clean, female, not Nathan's, not his lawyers. This was someone from inside the family, someone who still had access to the sealed estate documents. Emily sank onto the couch, still in her waitress uniform, her name tag slightly askew. Her mind raced through faces from her past, relatives, executives, snakes in designer shoes, people who smiled at the funeral and plotted before the casket hit dirt. Her father's will was airtight, or so she'd been told. His empire had been divided between his charities and one heir, her, and she had walked away from all of it. She hadn't even opened the estate letter, didn't care to read the terms. As far as she was concerned, her father had died long before his heart stopped beating. A knock shattered the silence, her breath caught. Another envelope? Another warning? No, firmer, human. She tiptoed to the door and peeked through the peephole. Ryan, she exhaled slowly and opened it. Sorry, he said, hands in his pockets, voice low. Didn't mean to drop by uninvited. You left your phone in my truck. He held it out. The cracked case caught the light. Oh. She took it, blinking. Thank you. He hesitated. You looked like you saw a ghost. Emily half laughed. Close. Try a family curse. Ryan leaned against the doorframe, eyes steady. You want to talk about it? She should say no, she really should. But the loneliness gnawed at her ribs like wolves in the dark. Yeah, she said quietly. Come in. She poured 2 mugs of instant coffee. They sat on opposite ends of her second-hand couch, the space between them thick with unsaid things. She told him everything, not the tabloids version, not the sanitized press releases, the real story about growing up in boardrooms instead of backyards, about a father who traded affection for ambition, about being groomed not as a daughter, but as a weapon, a legacy in heels. She told him about Nathan, how their engagement had been less romance and more merger, how the more he tried to mold her, the more she disappeared into someone else, how she finally ran. Ryan didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just listened like it mattered. When she finished, she looked up. Still think I'm just a waitress? He smiled, slow and genuine. No, I think you're a fighter. The words landed. Like a balm over a wound no one else had ever seen, she wanted to say something. Thank you. Or maybe don't go yet, but then her phone buzzed in her lap. Unknown number, a text popped up on the screen. If you care about your mother's safety, you'll be at the Lancaster estate by sunrise. Emily's blood ran cold. Her mother. The one person who had ever tried to shield her from the Lancaster madness, the only soul who never saw dollar signs when she looked at her daughter. Ryan saw her face pale. What is it? He asked, already sitting forward. She turned the phone so he could see. His jaw clenched. This is a trap, he said. I know. You're not going alone. She blinked. What? He stood. I don't care how rich they are or what kind. Of vultures are circling. If someone's threatening your family, I'm coming with you. But no, he said firmly. This isn't up for debate. For a long moment, Emily looked up at him, this stranger who wasn't a stranger anymore, and something in her heart shifted again. Okay, she whispered. He gave a small nod. Then let's get you ready. Hours later, as the first pale streaks of dawn broke over the Pacific, Emily stared out the truck window at the looming gates of Lancaster Manor. Cold stone, cold legacy, cold ghosts. The iron gates creaked open on cue. As the truck rolled up the winding path toward the estate, her phone buzzed again. One new message. We've been waiting, Emily, and we're not the only ones. Emily hadn't set foot on Lancaster property in 4 years. Not since the night she'd slipped away with nothing but a duffel bag, her mother's tearful blessing, and the promise that she would never come back. But now, as the truck eased to a stop beneath the massive stone archway, she realized she'd been summoned and someone was playing God with her past. Ryan shut off the engine, his eyes sweeping the perimeter like a soldier scanning enemy territory. Security cameras, motion lights, and that's a heat sensor. He pointed toward the discreet pole near the hedge. They were expecting you. Emily gave a hollow laugh. Of course they were. The Lancaster estate doesn't wait for anyone. It hunts them. The manor itself loomed ahead, Victorian in style, but monstrous in size. Twin gargoyles guarded the front entrance like stone watchmen. The ivy had been trimmed. The windows gleamed. Nothing was out of place, which meant everything was wrong. Are you ready for this? Ryan asked. Emily adjusted her coat and stepped out of the truck. No. She walked up the steps. Before she could knock, the door creaked open. Standing there was Yvonne Lancaster, her father's sister, one of the last true relics of the Lancaster bloodline. Elegant, controlled, vicious. Her eyes skimmed. Ryan, with thinly veiled disdain before landing on Emily. You took your time, Yvonne said flatly. Wait, ensure to subscribe, like, and comment on this story. Thank you. I came as fast as I could, Emily replied, her voice colder than the fog behind her. Where's my mother? Yvonne's lips curled faintly. Inside. But whether you see her depends entirely on how cooperative you intend to be. Took a step forward. If you're threatening her, Yvonne raised a hand, and you must be the help. Emily touched Ryan's arm, a silent signal. It's fine, she murmured. Let's just get inside. They stepped into the grand foyer where time had not passed. It had calcified. The black marble floors, the towering oil portraits of dead men in suits, the sharp scent of wax and wealth. It was all exactly as she remembered, the kind of place where secrets weren't buried, they were framed and displayed. A butler appeared silently and led them down the hall toward the east wing. As they walked, Emily glanced at the paintings and froze. There was a new one, an oil portrait of Emily, posed in a high-backed chair wearing a dark green gown and her mother's pearls. She looked older, colder. The artist had captured the Lancaster ruthlessness her father had always tried to coax out of her, but had never succeeded. She stared at it, horrified. I never sat for that. Yvonne didn't even slow her pace. No, you didn't, but the board commissioned it anyway. They believed it was only a matter of time before you returned. They were right. Emily felt her stomach twist. This wasn't about closure or peace. This was inheritance warfare. They were prepping her image, grooming the ghost. Yvonne opened a door and gestured inside. Your mother's in here. Emily hurried in. The room was dim, curtains drawn. Her mother sat in a high-backed chair near the fireplace, her figure thinner than Emily remembered, her skin pale but eyes sharp. Mom, Emily whispered, rushing to her side. Her mother smiled faintly. Still stubborn, she said, voice hoarse. I told them not to involve you. Emily took her hand. What's going on? Are you okay? Did they hurt you? Her mother's gaze shifted to Yvonne, still standing in the doorway like a shadow. They need you, she said softly. They're being challenged. Emily's blood ran cold. The inheritance? Her mother nodded. The board is meeting tonight. There's a new clause in your father's will. If you don't assume your position as successor by midnight, the estate defaults to... But before she could finish, the lights flickered, then went out. Complete darkness swallowed the room. Ryan's voice rang out. Stay close. There was a loud crack, like a gunshot. Glass shattered somewhere down the hall. Emily ducked instinctively, pulling her mother with her as Ryan pulled out a flashlight. From outside, they heard the low growl of a car engine, then tires screeching on gravel. Yvonne's voice hissed through the dark. They're here. Emily spun toward her. Who? The flashlight swept across the hallway, catching a flicker of movement. A masked figure disappearing around the corner. Ryan cursed. We're not alone in this house. Then they heard it. Footsteps above them, then behind them. Then the sound of a door locking shut. The sound of the door locking echoed like a final verdict. Emily's heart pounded. She crouched lower beside her mother, gripping her hand tightly as Ryan raised the flashlight, the beam slicing through the suffocating dark. Someone's inside, he muttered, and they knew we were coming. Yvonne, now unflinchingly calm, crossed the room and opened a narrow drawer behind the bookshelf. She pulled out a revolver. Then we play the game the way Lancaster blood always has, she said coldly. We win. Ryan looked unimpressed. That antique better work. It's been cleaned, Yvonne replied, spinning the chamber. And I never miss. Emily helped her mother up. We need to get her somewhere safe. Her mother shook her head. No time. The board meeting, it's happening downstairs in the vault room. That's where the original will is. And the key... The key to what? Emily asked. Her mother's eyes glinted. To everything. Yvonne stepped toward them. We have less than an hour before the vote. If you're not in that room with the key and the legacy ring, your cousin, Malcolm, takes control of the Lancaster estate. Emily stiffened. Malcolm's behind this. A dark smile from Yvonne. He's always wanted it. Your father never trusted him. But with you gone, he saw his opportunity. A crash sounded from down the hall. Glass, heavy footsteps, the thud of something being knocked over. Ryan took the lead, motioning for Emily and her mother to stay behind as he moved cautiously into the corridor. They made their way through twisting halls and hidden passages, ones Emily hadn't seen since childhood, when she used to sneak cookies from the kitchen and hide in the servants' tunnels to read novels under candlelight. Eventually, they reached the north wing, where a painting of the first Lancaster patriarch towered over a set of stone stairs, hidden behind a false wall. They descended into the vault. A circular room greeted them, lined with steel filing cabinets, ledgers, old scrolls. In the center stood a marble pedestal with a single black box. Yvonne moved to the pedestal, but just as she reached for the box, the lights flickered back on, and Malcolm Lancaster stood in the doorway, flanked by two armed men in suits. "Ah," he said, his voice smooth and venom-laced. "The prodigal daughter returns, just in time to lose." Emily stepped forward, jaw set. "This estate doesn't belong to you," he smirked. "Technically, it doesn't belong to you either. Not without this." He pulled something from his coat pocket, a heavy gold signet ring etched with the Lancaster crest. Ryan raised his fists, but Malcolm raised a hand. "Relax. I didn't come here to kill anyone. I came to give you a choice." Emily crossed her arms. "Let me guess, walk away, and you'll spare what's left of my mother's legacy." "Close," Malcolm replied. "Walk away, and I'll fund her treatment. I'll even let you keep the beach house. All you have to do is step aside at tonight's board vote and name me heir." Emily's stomach twisted. Yvonne glanced at her watch. 15 minutes. Ryan looked at Emily. "He's bluffing. That ring doesn't mean anything without the will and the family code." Emily looked to her mother. Her mother nodded slowly. "The real key is in your father's study, hidden beneath the chessboard, the final code to unlock the family. Trust." Emily turned back to Malcolm. "Then I'll see you in that room, and we'll let the board decide." Malcolm's smile disappeared. Ryan stepped forward. "Bad move?" Malcolm leaned in. "Then let's see if you survive the next 10 minutes. He snapped his fingers. Suddenly, the room behind them erupted in fire. Smoke billowed fast. Alarms screamed through the estate. The fire was no accident. It had been rigged. Malcolm's men had vanished, leaving chaos in their wake. Ryan grabbed the black box from the pedestal, handed it to Emily, then slung her mother's arm over his shoulder. "Move, now!" They sprinted through the underground passageways, dodging. Falling beams and flames licking at the walls. Emily coughed through the smoke, gripping the box tightly. They emerged in the East Library, where the fire hadn't reached yet. She threw the chessboard aside, revealing a steel plate beneath it. Yvonne bent down and pressed her thumb to the center. A soft click. The plate lifted, revealing an old brass key and a flash drive. Emily snatched them both, chest heaving. "This is it." They ran. The boardroom was already in session when they burst in, soot-covered, bleeding but unbroken. The 11 board members turned, stunned. Malcolm stood at the head of the long table, already addressing them. "And with the rightful heir absent, I nominate myself—" "I'm here," Emily cut in, stepping into the light. Gasps followed. She walked to the head of the table, placed the black box down, inserted the key, and turned it. With a soft hiss, the box opened. Inside was a leather-bound will, updated, bearing her father's unmistakable signature. A single clause had been added in ink. "My daughter, Emily Lancaster, is to inherit the full rights, responsibilities, and holdings of Lancaster Estate should she return before the board's final vote. She alone carries the legacy and the code." The flash drive was plugged in next. On the screen behind them, her father's recorded message played. "If you're watching this, Emily, it means I'm gone, and someone is trying to take what was never theirs. I raised you to be honest, brave, and smarter than every man in that room. This empire was built on blood, but it will only survive with heart. Fight for it, and if you must, burn it down before you let it rot." Silence. Malcolm turned pale. One by one, the board members cast their votes. Every hand pointed to Emily. The vote was unanimous. She had won. Malcolm was escorted out, furious and defeated. As the doors slammed behind him, Ryan exhaled sharply and slumped into a chair. Yvonne smirked. Not bad for a runaway. Emily looked down at the crest in the ring now resting on her finger. No, she said quietly. Not bad for a Lancaster. Her mother took her hand and squeezed it. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Emily smiled, but her gaze drifted to the long hallway beyond the boardroom, the halls she'd once run through as a child and now ruled as an heiress. For the first time in years, she wasn't running anymore. She was home,